Hello, everyone. How's it going? Thank you for coming. So, a little bit of Santiago. Um, Santiago is a curator and critic from Mexico City who has made a significant impact on the Mexican contemporary art scene since the 1980s. A graduate from the Universidad Iberoamericana of Journalism Department, Espinosa de los Monteros has contributed to the growth of the Latin American art scene since the early stage of his career through independent, institutional, governmental, and educational work. Throughout the 90s, he was the Mexican cultural attaché in Venezuela and Canada, while actively writing criticism for major international publications such as Art Nexus in Colombia and Mexico's La Jornada. Currently, Espinosa Los Monteros serves as the director of the Visual and Performing Arts at the Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana in Mexico City, where he also directs the university's Galería Metropolitana. His most recent independent curatorial project, Francisco y Casa, Me Quiero Ir al Mar, Francisco y Casa, I Want to Go to the Sea, was exhibited at the Mexico City prestigious Palacio de las Bellas Artes Museum in 2019. So besides that formal introduction, I got the pleasure to meet Santiago when I was working in Mexico City with him. We kind of got involved in a number of projects during these 2 months that we were there. And upon that collaborations, we have worked head-to-head to another piece of writings and other projects that we hope kind of enlarge the reach that MICA and not only Baltimore has on the world, but also like around us. So we would like to introduce Santiago, and I hope you guys enjoy his talk.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for hosting me. It has been an incredible days here, a lot of work and a lot of incredible people around. And it has very, very important for me to be here. I promise not to laugh about your Spanish if you promise not to laugh about my English. Okay? Let's make that deal. Thank you for being here. It's a honor for me to be here in MICA. It's a very prestigious place and with a lot of tradition and all the programs that Jose is now dealing with the curatorial practice. I think it's very important. We don't have things like this in Mexico, and I think we have an enormous example here of how can we go through the curatorial matters in many disciplines and in many ways and from many platforms, which is, I think is very, very important. I was asked to speak about one moment that in the one I was involved. This was in 2008. And it's about the Teresa Margolles presence in the 53 biennial Venice Biennale in Venice. And it was a very, very, a lot of things happened in those moments. And I should like to share them with you because I think part of that happened in those days, I think it's a key of what, in my personal feelings, is a curatorial work. As you very well know, of course, many curators work for a state or for a museum, or they are independent curators. But I think one of the main things of the curatorial part is to be the eslabón, como dices? The link, that's right. To be the link between the visual creator, I don't like the word artist, because the visual creator, the person that is proposing things in visual arts, and the public. I mean, I think it's one of the most important things of a curator, to be that link from the journalism, from the museums, from the magazines, from the speeches. I think it's very important to try not to translate what the visual artist is trying to say, the visual creator is trying to say, but yes, to try to be a link between that creation and the public. The public is not always is not always need to know what he's going to find out. But I think that our work as creators is try to put near, to make shorter that distance between the creator and the public. I think it's part of what we have to do. Of course, in so many times you select what you want to put in front of the public, and sometimes you want to do something with a person and sometimes not. That's your choice, because your baggage, because your knowledge, because your own personal likes, and I think this is valid. In this point, I want to share you, as I was telling you a while ago, that the things how were happening during the presence of Teresa Margolles. Are you aware of Teresa Margolles' works? You know who we're talking about. Teresa Margolles, for the people that is not aware of that, is a very, very important Mexican artist, which she has been putting the eye on her work and all of her energy into go through to visualize the enormous tragedy of the people that is dying in Mexico because of the narco war. The state, of course, says, well, they are killing each other. Bats, again, bats, and they will kill each other. But at the end of the day, it's people. We're talking about people. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about people that it doesn't matter from what they are doing in their lives. They are dying, and they are killing each other, which is in the deep is terrible, of course. And Teresa has been putting this in the front page of her work and doing a very, very strong, sometimes very difficult work to be seen, because she wants to visualize all these situations that in her hands have a very, very powerful statement. The 53 Bienal de Venecia was held in 2009. And in that moment, I was posting like Coordinador Nacional de Artes Plásticas in the Fine Arts Institute, National Coordinator for Visual Arts. And I was, the Bienal de Venecia was part of the things that I had to do in that moment, because that was part of my job that was coming in front of me. And I was very, I was not upset, and I was not angry, but I was not comfortable feeling that all the presence of the Mexican artists, well, we'll begin to use the word artist again, but the presence of Mexico in the Biennales was many times a very official presence. And it was very disconnected of what was happening in our country. We had a very good artist before Teresa, of course, like Rafael Lozano Hemer, which is a very, very, very important artist. We had Thomas Glass from some years ago. I mean, there was very, very important people. But it was always, after the Biennales, you were feeling always with the sensation of that was a very correct presence of Mexico in these Biennales, and but where is the real thing? Where is the real Mexico? And I was posting in that in the Fine Arts Institute, And I had in my office all the net of museums from the Institute of Bellas Artes, of Fine Arts. That means 18 museums. That means a very important museum like Fine Arts Museum of Arts, Museo Nacional de Arte, Museo de Arte Moderno, Museo Carrillo Gil, Museo Rufino Tamayo. I mean, there are 18 museums, and all of them were in my hands and in my office. Then that was a lot of work, a very bureaucratic work in many times, but that was a very, very strong work because all of the museums are different. All of them have different acervos, como dices, acervos, different collections. All of them have different buildings. All of them have different stories. All of them have different vocations. And that was very complicated to try to put in just one package all these different spaces, which with very different proposals, each one, and with very different faces of each one. But it was very interesting, of course. It was una gran enseñanza. It was very teaching for me. I learned a lot of things there. And one of the things, as I was saying, was the thing of the Bienal de Venecia that was going to fall in my desk in some moment, and I had to deal with it. And I had a very bad relation with my boss, I have to say that. And I am very glad to say that. And we had a very bad relation at the point that I was asking him to, we have to open now the applications for the Bienal de Venecia. That was the first time that Mexico was going to be open to applications, because for many years there was only a finger. Okay, this year you are going, now this year you are going, next year you are going. But there was no consent behind it. There was no collective decision of curators or a committee or something. It was very non-democratic system. And I built a democratic system in that point, asking 3 curators to participate as people that judge projects from curators that we previously invited. Those were curators, all of them in a very, very high level. We had Magali Arriola, we had Gonzalo Ortega, we had Pablo Helguera, we had Cuauhtémoc Medina, we have Patricia Martin. I mean, all of these curators, maybe these names doesn't tell you a lot, but they have been doing for many years a lot of work and a very serious work and very respectable work. And we invited them, and they had, all of them, the same information, exactly. This is a space in the one you can work. This is the money you can count with. These are the timings you need to be in the calendar. These are the trips we can pay you. I mean, they had the same information, all of them. Now, with that information, you make me a proposal. And then the 8 curators, they made us very, very interesting proposals, all of them on time, all of them very serious proposals. And I had no voice and no vote in those meetings with the jury, of course, because I was in another position. I was only el convocante, the
one who was making the.
That's right. And but I was there in those meetings, of course, and I saw all the proposals. And there was one, which is the Teresa Margolles work created by Cuauhtémoc Medina with the name ¿De qué otra cosa podemos hablar? What else we can talk about? That was incredible, was perfectly shaped, was very pertinent also, and was very to the day that we were living in Mexico. But of course, I never said in any moment, yeah, this is the one, yeah, come on, come on, hey, no, this is, no. I was very, of course, in my inside, I was like, I hope it lasts this project. And in the Fine Arts Institute, they were very uncomfortable with me because I was doing this situation with this jury, because there was involved the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the National Autonomous University, which is a great university, the bigger one in Mexico. There was involved PAC. PAC is a private institution that gives funds to the arts. There was involved also the Fine Arts Institute, of course. And the jury was making a very cold head work. They were jurying the works of the people that was applying, but without thinking in, oh, this is going to bother UNAM. Oh, this is going to like too much to the PAC. Oh, no, they were doing a very, very, very serious work. And at the end of the day, I knew the project of Teresa Margolles was going to be the one, but of course I couldn't say anything. And in those days, they me corrieron, ¿cómo se dice? I was fired from Fine Arts Institute just days before the examination was going to be held. And of course, they told me this on viernes en la noche, on Friday night, at the end of the week. Santiago, we're very sorry, this is a decision, and you're not anymore with us. It's well, but why? No, it's a decision. Santiago, please don't make difficult things. And no, well, yes, I'm not making difficult anything. I just want to know why. Please, Santiago, leave it that way, leave it that size. Don't move it anymore. Okay. Monday morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, there was a meeting with the director of the Fine Arts Institute and all the directors of my museums, well, not mine, but the museums that were in my area, to announce that I was going out and to present the new person that was going to go in. Nobody is forever, and I have that clear. And it was a very strong moment for me, of course, but at the same time, it was very relieving, very, very liberating. We went to my office. I presented to my team, to the new girl that was going to be in my place. Kisses and hugs to everybody. I love you all. Bye-bye. See you. And in the afternoon of that Monday, there was going to be a meeting with the jury, with the people from the UNAM, with the people from the Bellas Artes, the Fine Arts Palace, the Fine Arts Institute, the people of the PAC, to know officially the examination. And of course, I was not in that meeting because I was fired the morning, some hours ago. And the girl that went in my place was the new coordinator. She was there. She didn't know anything about contemporary art, nothing. She's an expert in Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera and Jose Clemente Orozco, the muralism, and she's very, very good in that, but she has no background in her studies of contemporary art. And then I knew she was not going to understand anything about Teresa Margolles and nothing about. And well, I was not in that meeting, in that reunion. But a couple of my team, a couple of persons of my team, they were there because they had to be supporting the new girl in my post. And the jury said, well, in our opinion, after looking all the proposals, we think the best one is Teresa Margolles' work, curated by Cotago Medina. And then, of course, everybody, well, not everybody, but the people from the Fine Arts Institute, my boss, no, come on. Well, okay, what's the number two? No, there's no number two. Our selection is Teresa Margolles. Yes, 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 but who is in second place? There's nobody in second place. Our only choice is Teresa Margolles. And in that moment, one of the girls of my team, she sends me a text. They are fighting, they are discussing, because everybody knows it's Teresa Margolles with Cuauhtémoc Medina. They say that, and then they are discussing who it is. And then I received that message, and in that point, without being anymore the national coordinator of visual arts, in that moment, I begin to share this information with the cultural media. And then I let the dog go away, and I let this know to key persons of the media, cultural media, of course, and minutes later, there was nothing else to do, because Teresa Margolles was in the media, and everybody knew the determination of the jury was Teresa Margolles. I was not anymore the coordinator, but Teresa Margolles was now in the imaginarios of everybody. And then I was very happy to be able to do that, because I know maybe it's not a more ethical procedure, but I think that when you have a project and when you have something to work for besides your official posting, your official situation, if you have something you have to try to put in front of the public, you have to do it in your institutional position or in your private position. It doesn't matter. You're going to be curator, always. Being in the state, being in a private institution, being in the academy, or being independent. You are curator 24/7. And I think it was very important that people could see the proposal of Cuauhtémoc Medina and Teresa Margolles. And that's how it began to run everything. I want to share with you this note in the La Jornada, January 10, 2009. I was fired those days. I don't remember if ending January, but I was fired in those days. And the note talks about that the Mexican diplomats were with Presidente Calderón. He was posting as president from 2006 to 2012 to 2012. Mexico presidency is for 6 years with no re-election possibilities. And he was a very aggressive with the narco, just taking the presidents. Days later, he declares the war to the narco. And the blood in all the country was everywhere. You cannot fight with an enemy that has no laws, that has more power than you as a state, that have no ethics, that have more money than you as a state, I have to say that. And then you cannot, it's an unfair war. From the day one that you declared that war, you lost. You cannot deal with that people. You cannot deal with an article. I mean, they have no rules. They're going to act, and they have no breaks to do whatever they want to do to have their money, their spaces, their territories, and of course the power that we all know they have internationally. And then the declaration of this war to the narco, it was like, como dices cuando alborotas al avispero, cuando le pegas a...
Stir the beehive. Stir the
That's it. That's it. And, but, of course, all the news in all the world where Mexico, the blood, the killings, the narco, the shootings, the streets, the danger. And Presidente Calderon, in this meeting that is related in this note, he has a meeting with the Mexican ambassadors in all the world, and he's asking to the ambassadors to say, hey, stop speaking about cows. Here is no cows. Let's speak nice about Mexico. Let's speak about our culture, about our rivers, about we have sea, about the tourism. We have to invite the people to invest in Mexico. Stop speaking bad about Mexico. Of course, the Mexican diplomats were not speaking bad about Mexico, but you cannot hide the sun with a finger. Of course, all the newspapers were looking what was going on in Mexico, and they were speaking about the real Mexico that Felipe Calderón wanted to hide. And the work of Teresa Margolles was an evidence. Here it is. Was an evidence of what was happening in that point. Teresa Margolles began her important work with CEMEFO. CEMEFO is an official agency for like a morgue. And later she separated from the group she was working in the 90s, and she goes through her personal work, which is very, very powerful. But Teresa Margolles, in that point, she's now, in this moment, she's now a very, very well-known artist in all the world, and she's very, very, with a lot of prestige as an artist and as an activist, of course. And in that point, Felipe Calderón is asking everybody, you have to speak well about Mexico, but I mean, I won't speak bad, but the news are telling me some other things. The real numbers, the cold numbers, are telling me some other things. And days later, once that Teresa Margolles was officially accepted, because everybody was very mad with it, was officially accepted that she was going to be the representation of Mexico in the 53 Bienal de Venecia. There's an inside story that a person that was in that meeting told me. I want to keep the names. Presidente Calderón called the director of the Fine Arts Institute, the international part of the institute, the people from Foreign Affairs Ministry that was involved in the cultural area, and the official part, and he asked them to go to his office, and he received them in the meeting room. They were seated there, and Felipe Calderón came out. He didn't even say hello to anybody. With the newspapers in hand, who accepted this? Who? Who did this? I'm not paying for people to speak about this. I'm not paying as a state. I'm not paying for you to put this in Venice. Who did this? And he was hitting in the table. He was really angry. Well, Mr. President, we no. Who did that? He was really angry. He was furious. I'm talking about maybe 3 minutes. He didn't say goodbye to anybody. He went inside the door. He came out, and the people had to go. He was really mad. He was really upset. That speaks to you about this divorce that many politicians have about their reality. And my question is, does Felipe Calderón really thought that asking diplomats and all the people that was working in the government not to speak about Mexico, was that going to fix the Mexico's image? I mean, the reality is there. The numbers are there. During his period as president, there were 1,600 people died because of the war of the narco or disappeared. Then, when you see this amount of people, you're talking about a war. But the things that the state said, well, it's because they are fighting between them. I mean, it's not that way. It's not that way, and we know it's not that way. The presence of Teresa Margolles in the Bienal was very powerful. She was very near to have the gold lion, the León de Oro, de la Bienal de Venecia. She was in the 5 finalist artists, and she didn't win, but after that, there were 3 persons. Matthew Barney, I think, was the person that had the lion that year. And, but she was, the people talked about the presence of Teresa Margolles in the Biennale. This is here. Do you see the mouse there? Yeah. This card, which is a dead person here, this card is like this one, for example, from the hotel I had. That is from plastic, and all the persons that came in the show in Venice, they were given a card of this. In one part, the one you see, is this photograph, which is very, very strong. And in the other side was Teresa Margolles, Bienal de Venecia, Curador Cotomo Medina, México no sé qué, Pabellón Tal, Palazzo Giuliani, And of course, these cards are for to cut the coke. And they were made for that, because everything comes from the narco. And then that's why she made this kind of cards to give to each person that was going inside the pavilion of the Venice. The imagine is very, very powerful. It's one of the thousands of photographs we have from the people. And I'm not gonna share it with you in big size because it's really horrible and it's not nice to show those things. But I want you to know that that was like the welcoming to a very powerful space. Here you have in 3 languages what's going about the statement of the very, very short statement about the presence of Teresa in Venice. This is part of the official presentation with a small map here, so you could arrive easier to the place of where was the exhibition of Teresa in Venezia. That was the Palazzo Rosa Ivancic. That's the name of the place, which is a very, very old place in Venice, like all Venice, of course. Not so big, with a profile of abandoned place. And Teresa used this place to present all her artwork. Here's the entrance is in this area here. This is part of the Ivancic. Here is the information about the Teresa. Here's one of the back street that goes through. This is one of the entrances to the exhibition. And this is part of what Teresa wanted to keep in that place. That was from another show, and she wanted only to keep the evidence of what was there. For Teresa, it's very important to keep the evidence more in her work of the people that has died violently, but also to keep the presence, maybe sometimes keeping about clothes, earrings, some photos, a shoe. Then she keeps like this reminds of the people. And in this case, she decided to keep the information of an ancient exhibition that was there that when you take it out, you find out that the sun began to eat the color of the things around the paintings that were there hanging in the wall. This is part of the main reception. This girl in the Palazzo Rosa Ivanchich. And she took this bench to the biennial as part of her more older work. This bench is made with concrete, but as you know, the concrete has to be mixed with water. And the water she used to do this bench is water mixed with blood of the people of the morgue. And then you are sitting in part of human remains in this bench. I took this bench many years ago to San Antonio, later to Austin, and later to Washington, D.C., in the Mexican Cultural Institute. And it was very complicated when we went with this bench through the customers. Of course, we never said it was made with blood and water only. Was that concrete? Sure, yeah, concrete. And the bench came inside. If you put mixed media, next, you're not going inside. This bench is very, very powerful. Sometimes the bench was near a wall, and the people walking in the exhibition, they sit down to take a rest for a while, and when they saw the information about the piece, they were reading, and everybody stuff like that. I don't want to stay here. But it's a very powerful, because it's so silent, it's so clean. There is no design, there is no desire to be protagonic. It's a very, very silent artwork. And Teresa took this to Venice. This is in trance. And as you can see here, look at all the floor. All this floor was cleaned at least once a day. Although this kind of details, Teresa wanted to keep them. Instead of going through a restoration, she wanted to keep them because they are very related with the clothes of the people that has been killed or died, because sometimes they have clothes broken because a knife or because a bullet or whatever, and then this kind of evidence that she wanted to keep in the place are related very directly with her work. This is the place which you see very decorative paintings, because and in a very bad shape, of course, as all Venus. I don't know how Venus is not under the water right now, because Venus is going down, has a lot of problems, real problems of the structure of the houses. Here you can see part of it. And this is the place. As you see, there are no artworks around, nowhere, but the floor was cleaning once a day with water and blood that she took from Mexico to Italy. I don't know how she did it. To Italy to mop up, to clean up the floor with blood and water. And the floor was all day super clean. And people, when they went in, they were stepping up the blood of the people died in Mexico. Here, as you can see, everything is super clean. It's in a very good shape. But the cleaning, they did it daily with this mix of water and blood, daily. There were two guys helping as part of the exhibition, helping to this is it, the text we saw some minutes ago. Are you listening to me? It's okay, the sound? Yeah. Yes? the map to make the cleaning. And you see, it's a very simple place. It's a very simple room. It's a palazzo, because many of the houses in Venice they call palazzos, but it's not a very rich place. Of course, it has its own history, but it's not this very opulent place, as you can see the floor. Here's the guy cleaning with the map. And they're doing this at least once a day. In weekends, I know they did it twice because there was a lot of people coming to visit the place, and then they did it twice. But during the week, they did it once a day.
Santiago,
Sí.
are these people like just like random people that she chooses?
There were people helping to the Teresa's piece. I suppose they were hired in Venice to do this. Many places, many countries that when they go to the Biennale, as it's very expensive to bring your own team to work there during the next 6 months, many people hires people from Italy, in Venice preferably, that do the work for maintenance of the exhibitions. This is the part of the inside of the palazzo. The guy mapping. I don't know if you can see it well here. Here's the guy mapping. ¿Trapeando se dice mapping? Sí. Sí. Oh, so I did something wrong here. And this is part of her work also. These are some canvases that she took from Mexico to Italy, pre-dried. And so when she arrived to Italy, she put water and mud again to revive those remains of blood. And then she began to put letters of in these pieces. They are so powerful because visually they are very powerful, because suddenly you see something that is not so clean, but at the same time is very organic, and at the same time is very protagonic, but at the same time is very silent. I mean, this is not a narrative artwork, but it's in a permanent place with colors that touch you in the very deep, like the red of the blood. And this made the presentation of these artworks in a very, very strong, they were very strong to the public, these pieces. Here you can see the letters. They were bolded for example, here says, oír y callar, to listen and to shut up, to listen and to don't say anything. Because there are a lot of words that come to the narco, vete de aquí, cállate, te mato, shut up or I'll kill you. I mean, all these phrases that many of the people that was that they hear before, because those are the kind of amenazas to the people before they die. All these are mud with blood. All of these parts, all displayed in the. Sí.
Can you explain a little bit like why like she was like having these, or like why like dead bodies were appearing everywhere, so people like needed to take them?
It's because many of these canvases, many of these were used before to rope the bodies, and take them to the morgue, or take them to the ambulance, or take them also to disappear them in a common grave. And she recovers all this, and she reuses again that vestigious of what was in direct contact with the skin of the dead bodies. It's very important to make clear that it's not, she always works with people who has been died in violence acts. Not only because you were old, you died, you robbed, okay, I use the rope. No, you have to be involved in a violent act because of common delinquents, or because of the narco, or because of the feminicidios, whatever. But the objects she chooses are always related to the very big violence in Mexico. As you see, the floor is not this very show-off floor of a castle that we can. It's a very, very simple ceramics floor. This is entrance. This is the flag of Venice, and this is one of the flags that Teresa did especially for this place, which is like the inside pieces, a canvas with blood and mud. And here we see the European Union flag, the Venice flag, and the flag that Teresa Margolles did for this moment. As you see, it's a very, very simple place. 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. Very, very, it's not a very wide castle. And there was a presentation of Teresa's. Here's the mug with the blood and water. This is what they were cleaning daily. Sometimes the remains were like this. Pues, quizás apagamos esta luz, pues se puede. It's possible to put a little bit down this light because I see very different images here in my computer than in the screen. Well, if it's possible, and if not, more. Okay, it's okay for you. Yes. Yes, it's more. Gracias, Jose. Yeah, it's more related to what I'm seeing here in my screen. Here, of course, is a lot of blood in the floor. Here's again the banners, the flags of the Venice, the Margolles flag, and the European Union flag. This is entrance of the Palazzo. And she covered this part. This maybe it's another side. She covered this part with canvases, also with blood and mud. This is the way she melt again. Once the canvases were in Italy, she began to melt them in the sea. So the blood and the mud became again alive, and to have they have the possibility to manipulate them. This is in Tijuana. This is very powerful because you see they are taking here some people trying to find the dead people. Maybe so many times they do it in these barrels. Why? There was it's a horrible case in Mexico that the police had noticed that many bodies were disappearing certain area near Tijuana or near Ciudad Juarez. And they knew bodies were in some place, but they never found anybody, anybody in any place. And they found out that there was a guy that was called, they also call it the El Pozolero, like to make pozole, the cooking Mexican food, because he was cutting all the bodies and put them in acid and melting the bodies, and so the bodies will disappear. There was no evidence, and he was charging 300 pesos per body, which is nothing, and during the days he was disappearing the bodies and disappearing all the evidence. When the police came to him, of course, the police took him. You are with the narco, you are killing. No, I'm not killing anybody. I'm just disappearing the bodies that somebody else is killing. I am not killing anybody. Yes, but you're putting those bodies in acid and you're disappearing those bodies. Well, yes. Okay, the guy today that we are talking here, he is free. And he walks in the streets as you can do it and as I can do it. Because the charges were that he had not permission to incinerate or to disappear or to bury bodies. And he had to pay a very, very small fee to the authorities because his charges were only because he had no permission. He was not an agent, una agencia funeral, como se dice, he was not a funerary. And that was the only thing. He was guilty for not being updated as a funerary agency. And he's walking in the streets as you and me. And then you can find these holes in the Mexican law that make the people that is directly and obviously involved in the narco, they go away because the law is not so clear in many points and have to let them free because they don't have how to catch him. And then that's why these people is trying to find remains in these barrels. This is in Venice, of course, and this guy, as you see, has a rosario, this color, but all the small balls of the color, the crystals, are crystals that come from the shootings of the narco, and when the crystals of the car break down, when they fall to the floor, Teresa picks them up and she makes jewelry with those crystals. She makes rings, she makes a necklace, she makes collares like this one. She makes a lot of decoration things with the remains of the narco crashes or the narco trucks that have been shooting, and then she takes away all the glasses of the windows or the front window of the cars, and then she makes jewelry with those glasses. This is part of the work before the travel to Venice. They were drying these canvases to make them wet again in Venice. This is the place in Venice. Here they are drying to the sun the canvas before holding it in the wall. And here they are seeding the letters that you saw in some other piece. This is Tijuana, and all these are canvases that were used to carry on dead bodies to some places. This is again the mopping moment. Sometimes when it begins to get dry, it's like a costra. ¿Cómo decimos una costra? okay, like a scar, when it goes, of course this is water, but it has these very small pieces of blood, and then when it goes dry, it goes like costras, like and that's it. Well, that's a presentation of Teresa's work. I have to say that I was very, very, well, it's a double sensation. I was very happy to have the possibility to put Teresa in that forum. It was very, very important, and her presence there was very powerful. But I was very sad to try to push that kind of expressions of art. And I was very sad because they are developing and they are putting in evidence one of the most complicated parts of my country, which is the violence and the narco war and those things. And it was very important to put her there and to show the world what is really happening to us. It was very important for me that, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I was really sad to have to push to do this because the state didn't want it to show it. Of course, everybody knows how the things are going. And I think, I mean, I was not the only one doing this, of course. There was a lot of people helping and pushing from so many places and so many platforms and from many levels. All of us quite in the silence, but pushing to make this happen. And I am very happy that this could be shown because I think the presence of Teresa Margolles in Venice was very, very powerful, and that a curatorial project like Cuauhtémoc's Medina project was only in front of the public that deserves to know what a curator has to share with them. I should like to go inside some questions and answers if you agree.
I have a question. Do you know if she's doing any body of work related to the current feminicides in Mexico right now?
No, I'm sorry, again, please.
If she... Yo también hablo español, yo le puedo preguntar.
Okay.
Que si sabes si está trabajando ahorita en alguna pieza relacionada a los feminicidios que han pasado en México.
Mucho, sí. Yes, there is a lot of people working. The 8th of March passed. There was a huge demonstration.
Yeah, my mom was there yesterday.
It was a huge demonstration, and I think it was very, very necessary. We're having 10 women
killed every
dead
day.
Daily in all Mexico, which is huge and is really sad. We have to change paradigms. We have to change a lot of our behavior of the machismo in Mexico, beginning even from the jokes, from the sexist commentaries, from the bullying. I mean, we have to begin with the kids and trying to stop all those comments. We cannot go through this with this very ancient culture of machismo and this hate to the woman. I think this has to stop now.
Yeah,
yes, answering to your question, yes, there have been a lot of art pieces related to the things of gender, and especially to the feminism. 8 days ago, opened in the Museo de la Ciudad de México, Mexico City Museum, an exhibition of 50 women painters going through the theme of gender. It was very, very powerful. I know many of them and are people that they have been fighting a lot to try to avoid this.
Yeah, I was wondering because when you mentioned that Felipe Calderón was very angry and didn't want to show Mexico like that, like the response of El Peje or what's his name again? Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
When he says like the feminicides was like people trying to distract them and like they were against the government. I don't know, that really pissed me off. That this man who was like against El PAN for so long is repeating the same patterns of violence and just ignoring the
He
fact.
said that when a girl reporter asked him to talk about the march of the 9th of March, he said something that I don't agree with that. He said, "Oh, well, yes, I am aware of that, but be careful because the conservators and the neoliberalism,
mafia del poder.
and they want to go through that. It has nothing to do with the state. It's something the people against me." I think it was a great mistake. I think it was a great mistake.
It was so upsetting because most of these women are very left-wing.
I think it was a great mistake, and it doesn't help to have in that charge as President of Mexico a person that doesn't understand the tragedy that we are living in that matter. I think he will have to make a very good team if he doesn't understand that, to have a very good team of people that tell him every morning, "Mr. President, this is important. Don't say this, say this." Because I think he's not in his formation. He's very limited in many matters. He's very clever in some other ones. But in these kind of things, I think he's very limited. That's my opinion.
Gracias.
Hola, gracias por venir.
Oh, no.
In the last 5 years, soy de Michoacán. In the last 5 years, El Ranchito, where I'm from, has a big spike in violence when it comes to narcos. And I've been making artwork about it, but I haven't shown it publicly. Is there any fear of retaliation from the narcos when you're showing this artwork in galleries, in museums, anywhere like that? Is that something that you are very aware of as an actual, real fear that something might happen?
Can you repeat me in Spanish, please?
Oh,
Go ahead in Spanish.
sí. Como hace 5 años, la violencia en mi ranchito, en Michoacán, empezó bien feo y ha estado haciendo mucho arte sobre eso.
Sí.
Cuando enseñas este arte en las galerías y los museos, ¿ustedes tienen miedo que algo va a pasar con los narcos cuando ven que están enseñando este arte o no se apuran?
Well, don't mess with narcos. We had an exhibition in Mexico that the name was Adiestrar el Presente. And we had a very large piece about Maestro Carlos Aguirre, which is an incredible visual creator, designer, artist, sculptor. It's incredible. And one of his artworks was a 12-meter wall with all the also colored names: El Chapo, La Barbie, El Tuercas, El Muletas, El Mónico, with all these the names, los sobrenombres of the narcos, and the letters were bigger depending of the importance of the narco. Some were very small because there were only sicarios, but many of them were big names like Caro Quintero, El Chapo, I mean, all the names we know. And in the middle of this piece, which was 2.5 meters for 12 meters, in the middle there were a lot of images of newspapers regarding the photographs of the dead people of the narco. In a truck, in the floor, in the store, in the restaurant, horrible, horrible photographs. And many of them were photographs of the narcos that were se busca, we're trying to find reward, and the photo of the narco was there. And Carlos Aguirre was very, very careful never to put these photographs upside down, because that means that's a message that I am going through you. You are the next. I have you here in opposite. And then if we in the gallery had one photo of those narcos in the opposite way, we were in danger. And then we were all very careful to have them in the right way. We want no problems with anybody because we are not going to kill anybody. We are not in the narco business. And we don't want to send that message. And Carlos Aguirre make us that warning. Because those photos, you can put them in different ways, depending the installation you are doing. And a guy put one of them like opposite, and Carlos Aguirre, no, put it up. And then he explained it us. Then I directly have I never had problems with these gangs or this kind of people, of course. I have to say also that I have never been doing a lot of work with the narco aesthetics, except sometimes some belts with la villa, ¿cómo se dice villa? With pot, with plants or whatever, but nothing that goes further than that. I mean, I have never been involved in that kind of a message, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
So, well, I always liked Teresa since I was a kid. Very strange kid, of course. So sometimes I wonder, like, is she often in danger because recollecting these sites, and like, how does she manage to stay safe and keep living in Mexico when she's recollecting the reminiscence of violent sites, especially as a woman? Even when you're not doing anything, you're in danger in Mexico, which is really sad. So I don't know if you have ever talked to her and how she managed to stay protected and safe.
Very easy. Teresa doesn't live in Mexico.
Not anymore?
No. She lives in Madrid. Of course, she comes to Mexico, but she's very shy. She doesn't appear in many places. She's very. No, Teresa. She has been in real danger so many times.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot because
she doesn't like to speak a lot about that. But I know for friends that she had amenazas de muerte and things like that. Stop doing this and don't go to that house and don't take photos here, and she keeps on doing that. I think that the work of Teresa is very brave in that sense, and she's very, very powerful in the point of view that she is very clear in what she wants to do, and she does it incluso poniendo su vida en peligro, including putting her life in danger.
Yeah, and I mostly ask because it seems that my line of work is going in a similar direction, but towards like sexual assault and like environmental abuse and all those kind of things. So I'm a sculpture major senior, and right now I'm trying to figure out what to do because I know like my body of work might put me in danger when I get back home if I ever go back home. So
Yeah, and I mean, Teresa, maybe she's the more powerful artist related to these kind of things. But there are a lot of artists doing things regarding the narco business. For example, there was a guy in Ciudad Juarez. I lost his track. I don't know where can I find him. But in an exhibition, I saw very beautiful drawings of some lines going in parallel to some place, somewhere to another one. Were like it was very aesthetic. Was very, very nice. And suddenly I realized that those lines, if you go with a drone and you take a photograph of the crime scene where some cars were crashing and going and stopping and screeching, those lines remain in the streets. And he was photographing those lines of the cars before the crash or after the crash. And he was doing drawings regarding those lines. I mean, there's a lot of people finding aesthetics in this kind of horrible situations. Another one, this girl of Sonora, ¿cómo se llama? Vimos su trabajo el otro día. She has been working a lot with the coats that they cover, los encobijados. She was working a lot with that also. Of course, without the power of Teresa, but she also, as Teresa, she put the eye in those themes. And I think, yes, there's a lot of people working this. In this big demonstration about the feminism, the past 8, there were a lot of girls showing the body with letters written with blood.
I've been in those kind of rallies, but one thing is going with a bunch of billions of women.
Yeah.
And another one is like doing like your everyday as a woman working in this kind of topics. And
That's right.
calling out like not only the narcos are just part of the system, but when you start calling politicians out, that's when you're like.
And in this
real
demonstration,
danger.
I don't know who did this, but in my opinion, was an incredible piece of art. There were maybe more than 100,000 personas, 1,000, 100%. And I don't know what group, or if it was one person or it was a collective, I don't know who did this. But during all the march, they were throwing away a blouse, a t-shirt, a small hat, some shoes, a bra, a tanga maybe. They were throwing things during the march. Of course, nobody picked them up. But when the march finished, it was full of vestige of the clothes of the women that had been killed. It was incredible. Of course, after the march, this remained only some minutes, because when the march finishes, there comes all the people cleaning the streets and leaving everything as it was before the march. But there are some photos of that. It's incredible. I mean, that's an, I don't know if to call it as a happening, but it was a visual proposal, an objectual proposal also.
Gracias.
Santiago, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
And definitely, is as powerful as it is, Teresa Margolles' art, definitely had to say that the courage and integrity that you showed during that process before the Biennale is something that is very unique and hard to find these days. I'm just curious, how was the aftermath of the Biennale in Venice in terms of the way the government used to handle that kind of situation, the authoritarian way to choose who's going to represent the country and all that, as opposed to do it in a more consensual way among all the actors that are supposed to be involved in that process. In the Mexico of now, is that still happening? Do you see any change? What was the reception in Mexico as a country after the Biennale happens?
Well, the first question you're asking me is, yes, the state was very, very angry, and they couldn't stop the presence of Teresa in Venice because she was there. The funds were already given to this project, and they couldn't stop that because that was something officially, and they had a compromise to go through this, and they couldn't stop it. But there was no publicity, there were no reactions, there was no presence of big politicians in Venice. There was the president of the Secretaría de Cultura, the Conaculta, before being Secretary of Culture in that moment. But she was there she was maybe half an hour, no interviews, next. I mean, they were like trying to shoot this out, you know. The 54 Bienal de Venecia, in which Mexico participated, I know the new director of Conaculta. She said, I want a woman this year, and I want no problems. And I know that because a friend of mine, very near, was working with her, and that when they begin to speak about the next presence of Mexico in the Biennale, she said that in those words. Okay, this year I want a woman. She's a very brave feminist. I want a woman, and I want no problems. And then was again a finger. And the next girl was Melanie Smith. There has never been replied again the idea of the jury. So there are no curators invited to make a proposal. They invite somebody to participate, and they find a curator around to make the things more structured. But they are not doing anymore the jury decisions, which is a shame because more heads think more. That's right. That's right. And it's a shame, but I tried to open that door, but it's already closed. No matter what, at least I opened it once. And now, your last question about the new government, how they are looking the cultural. I am very disappointed with how they are managing this, because I think they are not understanding the power of the contemporary culture in Mexico, not only in visual arts, also in letters, in theater, in dance. They want to go back to the origins, and they are giving a lot of spaces to folkloric dance, to very important textiles, which are important, of course. But you cannot ship I mean, everything has a space to be exposed. And I think they are trying to take out all what doesn't mean, at least for the people that is now in the government, and they have decisions in these matters. They want to take away all the things that doesn't represent the big communities, the indigenous people, the communities of people that make pottery, or that make artisanal things. They want to give them more spaces, which is, I repeat, I think is okay. And I think it's very important because for many years they have not been able to have any spaces. But you cannot give them the spaces that are for some other publics or that are destined to another kind of presentations or another kind of lectures, because the public is reading the things in a different way. I mean, if you put a group of musicians from Los Huicholes or Zapotecos, you put them to sing something in the Museo Tamayo, maybe they're going to sound very nice because the Museo Tamayo has a very good acoustic. But what does that has to do with the Museo Tamayo, with the vocation of the museum, and what does that have to do with the collection of the museum? I mean, I think this new occupation of the spaces has to be more carefully. And at the same time, they are cutting a lot of funds to the contemporary art because they think this is not the main thing. I personally, I am very sad about that because I think the future of the cultural presence in Mexico is in the young people, in the very young people, doing things, making mistakes, going wrong, but doing things in contemporary art, in letters, in writing, in trying to do museography, in trying to do gestión cultural. I mean, in many levels. And I think you have to give them spaces, and spaces doesn't only means to give them a place to work in. They need good salaries. They need good diffusion. They need to somebody else to help them to be seen. And I think this government is not doing good work in that matter.
It has to be more inclusive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you think that even though all the dialogues about like nationalism and like these spaces that are like talking about indigenous communities are like also like just established for entertainment instead of having maybe a dialogue, conversation about like guerricidio or like displacement of like indigenous communities and like discrimination, like racial discrimination for them through the arts?
I don't know if I understood you very well, but I cannot avoid the community process of the development of the culture. What I really think, which is very important, is that development has different stages. Of course, you need to put in front of the public what you are, your story, your knowledge, your past. And that means to put also an archaeological art piece from somebody else, like a modern landscape or a very, very contemporary thing from Francis Alice. I mean, all that is part of what we are. The problem is when you want to give more spaces to one or to another, every language has their own space to develop. And I think we have to be very careful to put the things we want to say as curators or as art critics or as artists also in the places, in the ones you are communicating things en connivencia con el lugar, according to the place you are saying those things. I mean, has no sense that I go to the Mexican cathedral, for example, and play something from John Cage. Yeah, John Cage is John Cage. And the cathedral means a lot also for us and our history and everything. But what has to do one thing with the other? I mean, it's important in both cases. Maybe a very contemporary art will be John Cage inside cathedral, of course. But what I want to say is that the people that is going to go to the cathedral, maybe they are not aware and they are not interested in John Cage. You can say, well, if you put something from John Cage in cathedral, maybe somebody will go through that and will be interested in. But at the end of the day, I prefer some groups, bigger groups of more informed people in some other places to share this kind of knowledge with the people of also the cathedral people. I don't know if I'm clear, not so much. Es que mi inglés es como de Indio Bedoyo, pero bueno. Pero
No, lo que te quería decir era como, ¿crees que la parte de estar con este discurso nacionalista también limita a las comunidades indígenas a quedar en representaciones de entretenimiento en vez de hablar del tierricidio, hablar del desplazamiento
Claro, ahí
de
está.
comunidades, de la discriminación racial a esas comunidades? Entonces dejan todo este, pues, este espacio que ellos tienen, que los quieren mostrar, pero solo como entretenimiento.
Por favor, tradúceme la respuesta. Mucho de lo que se está tratando de hacer en
A lot of
cuanto
things that they are trying to do.
a las comunidades que están ahora dándoles más espacios es justamente romper con la idea de desplazamiento. Y es importante la integración, pero no se logra de un día para otro.
Okay, a lot of things that they are trying to do, giving spaces to these communities, is like to break like these discriminatory like lines, but things cannot like be changed from one day to the other.
Es un proceso mucho más largo y de integración en otras plataformas. Es decir, yo tengo una gran cercanía con el arte indígena, con el arte eclesiástico, y también lo tengo con el arte muy actual y muy contemporáneo, pero no espero que los públicos tengan la misma lectura de esas obras en los mismos espacios. Hay públicos para todo y espacios para todo.
That's a lot. He has like a very affinity with like the two different publics, but there are platforms for everything. There are platforms for one public and another platform for another. But things like he has like certain affinity with like ecclesiastic art, or like things that are like maybe like in cathedrals or like in more like religious spaces. But like everything has a space, and like the integration of these spaces takes time.
Sí, más o menos.
Do you want to like add something, or Jose?
He also mentioned that like there's a deeper problem here that in order to really be inclusive, they need to understand the background. You cannot just put like indigenous people in the space to say like we're being inclusive, because there's a deeper problem in there. Because they may say like we're being inclusive, but are they really dealing with the problems of these people and understanding what they are? Because the problem of just putting them in just random places is that it's a matter of becoming just a decorative motif and not a deeper understanding of the culture. So that's why he's saying there's different platforms for this. Because at the end, just putting like millions of people in certain places can end up being more discriminatory than
Yes, thank you. And I think based on time, we want to conclude tonight's lecture. And I want to really, again, thank you everybody for coming, but also want to thank Santiago for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and once again, thank you for hosting me. This has been a great honor, really. Thank you.